quiet down and give Mr. Aaron Smith our attention. He is an illustrious designer at a company called Sentient Science. He received his name is Aaron Smith. He received his undergraduate degree from Allegheny College and a master's in fine arts degree from some other college called UB. Good school. And he's come here to talk about his work, his practice, and anything else he feels appropriate and worthwhile for your time. So please give him his attention and generate questions. Take copious notes. Thank you. Aaron?
You can turn on the lights if you want, or whatever you need to.
The lights up. Those are fine.
Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you for taking your time out today. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm very excited to talk to you guys. As Brent said, my name is Aaron Smith. I have been in the design business for about 15 years. I currently work, my title is Director of Digital Experience. I work for a startup company locally called Sentient Science. We're about 100 people now. I started when we were about 20. And really what me and my team is focused on is the digital experience. And today we'll kind of go over that, what that means and how we design for that. But before we get into that, I really just want to ask everyone, or a few people in the audience, what is design? Anybody?
The ability to imagine and create.
Ability to imagine and create. Anyone else?
Intentional organization of space.
Ooh, intentional organization of space. Did you guys prep for this? Or these answers are awesome. Anybody else?
Everything around us.
Everything around us. Okay. Great. So we're going to take those answers and I'm going to dive into, and hopefully I can give you an answer, my answer by the end of this. Okay. So the world I live in is formally titled UI or UX. Sometimes UI and UX. Really, when the people are defining it like that, they really don't know what they're talking about. But there's a great difference, and I want to start off by just kind of emphasizing the difference of UI and UX and defining those. So UI, or user interface design, very similar to actually what you would call graphic design as well. What you'll see, our example here on the left is a traditional ketchup bottle. Looks great, pushes the product. It's branded. Everyone knows what it is. Everyone knows what's going to be in there when they go to use it. Has anyone ever tried to get ketchup out of that bottle?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We're all laughing because we've all tipped it over, banged on the bottom, nothing comes out. Take some utensil, try to get in there. Maybe we have something stuck at the bottom. We just can't get it on our fries. It's a frustrating experience, right? When you talk about design, when you talk about products, when you talk about brand, that is not a feeling that you want your customers or users, in software case, to have, right? So then we get into user experience design. So it goes into more depth. It's not just on the surface. We start identifying where the frustration points are for our users or our customers. We start manipulating the product and the brand so that they have a pleasurable experience, right? I'm assuming everyone has used this version of tomato ketchup, right? Very easy, very, very trustworthy. Pop the cap, you get ketchup, you're ready to go, right? So what I'm kind of emphasizing here is kind of reflected in this graphic, right? So user interface, graphic design is just at the surface. It's just what people see. Usually it is what people respond to. However, there's these underlying layers of design that people need to identify to make that user interface to be successful and pleasurable. Really, it starts with getting into understanding who your users are. We call them user personas. Understanding the problems that they're challenged with, and understanding how and starting investigating and exploring ways to solve that. I like to kind of emphasize that with a quote from Tim Brown. For those who don't know Tim Brown, he's CEO of IDEO. I would also say anybody that doesn't know the company IDEO, look them up. Great design firm. They have coined this term, human-centered design, and his quote is basically, design thinking is a human-centered approach to innovation that draws from the designer's toolkit to integrate the needs of people, the possibilities of technology, and the requirements of business success. So really what he's doing here, what this quote is identifying, is that there's three key things from a design standpoint that we got to look at. We have our people, we have our technology, we have business success. I want to emphasize business success. This is something we don't necessarily, especially when I came out of school, I didn't really think of that, right? I just wanted to make cool things. I wanted to make pretty cool things, right? But then you can't really make cool things if you're not making money with it, right? Like that's the underlying thing that drives all of this. So we can't ignore it. So what does that look like? Venn diagram. Love Venn diagrams. Really breaks down into three separate quadrants. We have feasibility, desirability, viability. Feasibility from a technology standpoint, is it possible? What is the time constraints? What is the technology constraints? In the software industry, this is a debate on a regular basis. One of my favorite conversations is having debates with the software architects in regards to how the data is structured and so on and so forth. My eyes glaze over just slightly, but we want to make sure that we know all the restrictions before we put requirements in front of them, right? Viability, again, this goes back to business success. Understanding what the financial goals are, understanding if there's a market for it, understanding what the company's objective is with this, right? Desirability, this is the realm I spend some time with the Venn diagram in. It's really understanding the users and the people. And then from that, they all come together to the central point of perfection. We call it the user experience. This is how this is achieved, by understanding where all of these exist. So how do we do this? Right? Because I'll tell you at least where I'm located, software company I work with. To give you guys some more context, I work with a lot of very smart people, people that know they're smart. A lot of them hold PhDs in material science, tribology, data science, and they all have strong opinions of type A's. And we have a lot of side conversations. A lot of great ideas are floating out there. None of them are bad ideas, but a lot of great ideas. A lot of ideas are floating out there individually. So how do we come to consensus? How do we define the problem we're going to solve? I like to leverage what they call the design sprint. This is a process that was made popular by Google Ventures. A bunch of software companies, people might be familiar with Slack, leverage this on a regular basis. And it's how they go about really identifying the problem and coming up with a solution and validating it in a very short time frame. Usually this can take months and months and months because there's side conversations and lack of focus. So just to explain what this process looks like a little bit, day one is the unpack. What does that mean? So really we sit down for a day, a couple hours, and we bring all the problems to the table. We take all the area experts, whether data scientists, material scientists, business folks, we bring designers in, we actually even bring our users in, our intended users in. And we want to identify all the possible problems that are out there. While doing that, we do different exercises. One's called How Might We's, in regards to writing out possible solutions to those problems. I also like to think of day one as kind of the venting session. Right? Like get all the problems out there and then we stop talking about problems. Day 2 is when we transition from problems into solutions. So with the team members that are part of the design sprint, we start looking at sketching solutions. And they don't have to be pretty sketches. The designer does not have to do the sketch. It's something for everyone to participate in. The reason you do it in sketch is because you can actually start communicating more clearly with everyone and with the group on what your solution is. Storyboards are great for this. We also even do an exercise called Crazy Eights. Hold a paper and piece of 8. Get 8 minutes, one idea per minute. Right? It's brainstorming. It's getting the ideas out quick. Right? Because then we come back together on day 3 and we do decide. Decide. This can be. You can get down rabbit holes here, but this is really getting, again, consensus from all our 3 quadrants of what problem we're going to solve. Because remember, on Unpack, we identified a lot of different problems. We can't solve all the problems at once, right? In typical design, the minute you get one problem solved, somebody wants to throw on 4 more problems to solve with that same design. We don't know if it's going to work. It's called scope creep. It sucks, right? Because we want completion points too. That's the other thing we want to find. We want to find completion points. So on day 3, we go through this decide of actually what problem we're going to solve and how we're going to solve it from what we identified from 1 and 2. So day 3 goes by. Day 4 this is where the designers shine, right? This is where we build a prototype. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be perfect. What we're trying to do is identify, is that solution going to solve the problem for the person that we're building it for? Okay. We currently use a tool, 2 tools. We use Sketch and we use Envision. If you guys aren't familiar with those, I totally recommend you look them up and play around with them. Great tools. But we use those to build UI prototypes. It looks and feels like a user interface. However, it's just some fancy static pictures that are woven together. Day 5, we reach out to people internally and externally that haven't been part of the project, have no context to it, and we ask them to test. We sit down with them, I read a script to them, give them a challenge, see if they can go through the user interface and actually follow the map or do the things we intended them to do, and understand how frustrating it was for them to do that. Right? So, what does that give us? So what we've just done in 5 days is we've come up with a prototype of a design or a solution, and we have gone from idea to learn in 1 step in 5 days. In times past, that will take some companies that take 6 months, a year to build to. And the reason I find this so important, successful design all comes down to what you know. The more you know, the better the design becomes, right? So we just bypass the developers. We basically bypass all the development phase. So we can be confident that the design we've delivered to development will have success. I like to say our goal is to fail fast. We fail a lot, but that's okay, because you get more, you learn more through failure than you do through success. It is my team that does. Everyone does learn, but my team is the one that is learning the fastest. And that is our goal. So that's one tool my team uses in relationship to find our solutions. And we have to do that, just for context, we have to do that regularly. The software we work on, it deals with many different personas. It's not just who the sales guy sold it to. It's all that guy's teams and half the other organization as well. I don't deal with the sales conversations. I deal with our users. They're different people. The other thing we leverage is called a design system. So what's a design system? Remember when I said, remember I just said it. Our object is to fail fast, right? With that, we want our UIs. Remember that thing at the top of the surface? The iceberg, thank you. It's just a surface. To us, those are throwaway. Because if we're learning quickly, we should be able to pivot quickly. We should be able to create new things faster and faster. How we do that is through our design system. Traditionally, most companies do this for just their product. We're also building ours out to support our brand and our marketing. Because through the user experience, we also facilitate a lot of the marketing stuff as well. But really, we're getting into a point of identifying trends and leveraging that for our team. What does that look like in more depth? It's kind of based off this concept that Brad Frost put out there called atomic design. And it's really taking one page or one UI and breaking it down into smaller and smaller and smaller elements. Okay. For example, the atoms. Very simple. What colors are you using? What are your brand colors? I'm telling you, if you don't define those, people will deviate. I have seen hot pink on our software application. And it took me 2 months of complaining for that to get removed. But it's clearly defining what colors can be used and why. Fonts. What are your header fonts? What are your paragraph fonts? Very simple stuff. But it's clearly having those clearly defined so developers know their expectations. Molecules. Okay, so it's a button. In simplest form, it's a button. What does the button look like? The button shouldn't change on your piece of software. Again, this goes into consistency and brand, right? And user experience. You want them to have a consistent experience throughout the entire platform. Another thing like that is inputs, form inputs. Right? What does an organism look like? So let's take a button and apply some inputs to it. We now have a form. Where does the title lay? How do the inputs lay in relationship to each other? Where does that button position after that? Template. Good example of this, we call it our Chrome, but it's really removal of the content. What does the header bar look like? What does the footer bar look like? What does the side nav look like? Where's the logos? So on and so forth. And then it finally culminates up to the page, which we're just taking all these small elements and putting them on a page. So our design team supports this so that what we can really do is we're really building a design community internally and externally from our organization. Okay? We're now empowering our developers to build the UIs for us. And we know that they will meet our user experience standards because we've given them this box to work in. We tell them they have freedom, but they're really put them in a little box, right? But they like that, right? They like to go and build, but a lot of them too are not really savvy on some of the front end stuff, so we just give them the elements for them and they just plug and play, right? We've given them the puzzle pieces and then they're putting the puzzle together, right? So yes, as the organization has grown, I've needed to take design out of the way. We needed to incorporate everyone and empower everyone. And I said, I'm emphasizing the developers, but it also goes into people in marketing. They're not all designers, but we need to give them tools that they can get stuff out quick and they're not waiting for us. Salespeople as well. It comes down to PowerPoint template size. I hate cleaning up PowerPoint templates. I hate when somebody asks me to do it. I hate when somebody asks one of my teammates to do it. So we give them the tools they need to to be able to facilitate. Now they are actually our own users, right? Talking about design sprints, identifying your users, we now have a birth of users internally for our own quote-unquote product, which is the design system. And they let us know where it needs to grow and how it needs to improve. And we're constantly doing that. So, what is design? To me, design is the compromise between disciplines which results in a clear path forward. And this graphic, you'll see this around. This is used regularly to kind of talk about this. But you start at the initial phase when some sales guy comes in and says, "I got a great lead on this great idea," and you have 5 executives jump in on that idea. God damn, it's a mess. Everyone thinks they know what they want. Everyone has some idea, but no one's speaking the same language. And through the design process or the creative process, it's our job. It's our job to provide that clarity. So. What I want to instill with this group here is, when I came out of school, design was very personal, something I did, right? I'd get a project from a teacher, I'd go off and be creative, come back with this awesome thing and get a grade, right? Which I still like doing that, but I don't get paid for it. I do that on personal time. It's my own thing, right? What I've learned getting into the professional world, design is really us being the guides for the creative process for the internal teams. The reason for that is everyone on that team or in that organization is an expert in something that you need to know. And I'll tell you, I've tried to know a lot of stuff where I work, but I am not a PhD in material science. There's no hell I will ever be, right? So as a result, I lean on those people. I bring them in and make them part of the process. And I take them down that path with me. So at the end of the day, we have a solution. We get to the top of the mountain. It's a solution that we're all bought into, we all support. We can all move forward with the next challenge. As opposed to saying, well, I don't really like this one. Right? But if we go back to the graphic I had before, once we get to the top of the mountain, we release, we learn. Right? It's another phase of learning. And if we keep from a UI standpoint, if we keep our UIs kind of throwaway, we can pivot at any moment in time and make it quick. But again, I'm going to emphasize, it's our job as designers to make sure we're bringing people along with us. So, conclusion. But I wanted to leave a nice chunk of time here. I think we got 30 minutes. We got about 20 minutes left, right? 15 minutes. So I wanted to make sure you guys had enough time to ask questions. I expect many questions.
Is it hard for you to take what your team members say about like your ideas not personally?
Oh.
What was the question?
I'll repeat the question. Working with teammates and not taking criticism or their ideas personally, against yours. I'll tell you, it took me a while to get over that person. Especially when I got more into a leadership role and we started going from 20 people to 100. And that's why as I grew the team and I realized we had to scale and move faster, we had to start emphasizing on more of these kind of process of bringing the team together from day one, and realizing that you are a voice in that solution, right? Because the creative process is a personal one, and you take ownership over it. So yes, you're gonna have that feeling, but the sooner you can get into bringing people along with you, it mitigates that. Because I think what I've identified too in the past is you do some work over here and you say, you like it, right? As opposed to, let's do some work over here together. Is this the solution you want, right? Then you don't get that response, right? The worst response is the I don't like it response. So you'll deal with it. But again, if you reiterated the point, be the guide, bring them along with you, and you'll mitigate that as much as possible. Any other questions?
How did you evolve to this point from a fine arts background?
Yeah, so my undergraduate was Allegheny College. The program was art and technology. I got to play with Photoshop. I learned some HTML, CSS, did some video work. Went to UB, kind of did the same thing. I was actually aspiring to be a college professor. I realized at that moment in time I really didn't know enough to teach. I feel like I could teach anybody. So while I was going to grad school, I was just doing graphic design, like freelance work here and there. I got a job in a marketing department. I made some surgical smoke evacuation systems look sexy. I'll let you figure that one out. But ultimately, what it came down to, even early on in my art career, I was always more interested. I was interested in two things. The process. The process was always fun for me because I got to zone out, relax. But then at the end of the day, once it was done, I was always very interested in the experience or the interaction I was having with my viewer. Not necessarily what was up on the screen, but what were they experiencing, right? And then as I got into web work, like, again, I just didn't stay at the UI level. Like, I wanted it to be successful. Like, I could build a website, but if no one found it, does it exist, right? So I got into like understanding SEO and how to optimize. But then at the same time too, you wanted to make sure, because I was in a couple marketing departments. You wanted to convert them, right? Because that's success. Like, somebody's interacting with it. So how do you optimize how they get down that path? Then I worked at a software company, Campus Labs locally. Kind of bounced between the marketing department and their design department there. And it's a natural transition of my curiosity. But I think it all stems down back to the, at the root of my art degree of just always being interested in that effect I'm having on somebody. The same goes with here, where I'm at Sentient Science. We're doing a lot of very interesting engineering work, very hard things to understand that people in PhDs understand. And it's our job on the design team to translate that and communicate it clearly to business people. Not that business people are bad people, but they're not necessarily, they don't know what Bible curves are. They don't know what S&M curves are. Like, I only know those because I work with those people. But how can you communicate this clearly to multiple users so that they actually can take action? So I think that answers the question. It all comes down to always being interested in how I'm having an effect on somebody. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
So my question is, my major is graphic design, and a lot of people today say that you really, a bachelor's degree just isn't doing it anymore. You really do need to pursue that master's degree. Do you think that's true, or?
No. Do I need to say that more? The question was, do you need a master's degree for graphic design? I would say you need a master's degree if you're not self-motivated to build out your portfolio. That's what design work is based off. It's your portfolio. It's about getting out there and doing it. Matt, I have an MFA. I went and got my master's. The reason I did it, I wasn't doing anything else creative at the time. So it was my way of sticking with it and doing it. Buffalo was a different time 15 years ago. I remember talking to people about websites and I don't need a website. What's that? What's the internet, right? Like, I'm that old. We can actually have that conversation. But I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And I'm glad that everyone converted. But I would say you can. I would say if it's just to get a graphic design job, I would say don't do it, personally. I would say focus on your portfolio. Get out, meet people, talk to them about what you do. Early on in my career, I even did a lot of, I just did pro bono work for organizations and groups that I was part of, just to keep working and keep building, and people then get used to you're the person that does the graphic design. So it all comes down on, the choices should always come down to what your actual career ambitions are, right, too. So if you want to be a graphic designer in Buffalo, it's just a fine route. If you want to go out to New York City, I don't know, I can't tell. But I would assume the same kind of thing works there. A lot of that kind of stuff just comes down to networking, getting your stuff out there, which it's hard. Like, I'm not gonna brush over it. Like, again, design is a personal process, and you like reveal it, right? And somebody's like, I don't like that. It's okay. Somebody else will, right? And then there's also plenty of avenues online of just finding side work that way too. Other questions?
What's your favorite part about working on any given project? Like, if there's a specific point that you like to work on the most?
So I learned to do front-end coding out of a necessity, right? So I do that occasionally to help out with the team. But really what my favorite thing is, and I've kind of transitioned my role in the organization other than leadership, is more of UX research. So really sitting down with our users, putting the new stuff in front of them, learning from them, and bringing that back to the team. I think since I've been with the organization for so long, since we're a small group, I spend a lot of time of educating people on lessons we've already learned. So I'd say that's where I kind of gravitate to, because to me that's where it starts. If we can't understand our users and our personas that we're working for, so we're not working for the business. I mean, we are working for the business, but at the end of the day, our work is targeted towards these personas and these people, these users, right? So if we can't understand those people, how can we solve the problem? So I will always start there first, and if I get time to do a prototype through Sketch, or if I get time to code something in the design system, I do that too. So depends what mental break I need. More questions?
Do you have any examples of like designs or like just anything that you could show us?
Do I have internet? That's a great question. Yeah, I'll just spin up a hotspot on my computer. So, if you go to anything by Sentient Science, my team has touched it. If I have not put my hands on it personally, I'm going to spin up our. Actually, wait, hold on. I have it locally hosted right now. I don't need internet.
I can switch over to the PC right
No,
here.
it's fine. You got it right here.
You got it. Okay.
I was just working on it before I came here. So this is what I'm getting at with the design system. actually, I guess we could just do this. We're still in, I think we're on our second pass at it, maybe second and a half. And really what it's getting into is, since the product version is built out the most, we'll start there. You can see where we're getting at with our foundation, our colors, our layouts, our typography. And I'll tell you, like, when you start breaking it down like this, it's not sexy. Right? Like, it actually kind of, some ways, it kind of feels like paint by numbers. Right? But again, we kind of want that for our developers to leverage. And we'll spend more time in Sketch doing kind of like low fidelity or wireframe versions, right? Because we're really focused on that full experience, right? Not just what the UI looks like. And the UI, yeah, I don't have that locally right now. But actually, do we have the Chrome on here? I will actually say I'm doing an audit of this whole thing right now. So some of the stuff I haven't even looked at because the team has been working feverishly. So as you can see, like, here are buttons, here are how they are used. So we're transitioning our mindset in the organization. We're transitioning out of like these full high fidelity prototypes that look pretty, and really, again, identifying the elements that need to be there and making sure they're clearly identified for the other teams. So remember, we're building a community. We can't do it all. But yes, I would recommend sentientscience.com is the company site. The product is digitalclone.com. Fortunately, you guys haven't signed any contracts, so I don't know if you can get into digitalclone.com. But through Sentient Science, you'll see what we've been doing there, anywhere from branding all the way down to some of the product stuff. And then more than happy to keep going through this. This is a great, it will eventually be a great resource. It's a okay resource. Wait,
Sorry.
you got it. Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. So for a design sprint, you said there are 5 days, and you say other companies, like, it can take a lot longer for them.
So it's design sprints. We're still figuring out how it best fits us. The traditional, the way the book reads, it's 5 days. That is sometimes in a perfect world.
Right.
Like if you say, hey, Google Ventures, come do a design sprint, that's how they're going to do it, and you're going to be okay with that. Me saying, hey, executives, come on in and give me 5 days of your time, they're kind of like, I'll give you an hour or two. So it's kind of finding out how your company rhythm works and how you can make it fit. The reason we leverage design system is to get out of the 30, 60-day, 90-day cycle. Because that's traditionally how it happens, just because of side conversations, lack of alignment, Venn diagram, lack of those 3 people being in the same room at the same time. Usually the conversation happens between 2 over here, and then 2 over here, and then 2 over here. It just perpetuates a waste of time.
It's like playing telephone.
Yes, it is the worst game of telephone. I reference that all the time.
So it takes longer to get something than 5 days.
Yes. If you don't, what the design sprint really gives you and gives the team is focus. Because there are so many problems that are trying to be solved, so many initiatives. There's always going to be a lack of resources in a company. There's always going to be somebody complaining about it. So much work to do. That's a good thing. If you don't have enough work to do, that's a problem. But because of that, there's always a lack of focus. And by formalizing it, saying it's a design sprint, saying we're structured meetings to solve these problems, you get everyone's focus. And that is the other thing you're kind of doing as a designer, is wrangling that focus. I don't know. Brent, is Brent more?
Yeah, I was going to say, what kind of skill sets, what kind of, not just skills, but
abilities should the students be requesting, or if not demanding, from their professors while they're here? How can they, because sometimes I think they just accept what's coming at them without saying, well, actually I'm looking for this, or and sort of looking back on your own education and knowing that these students still have, most of them still have a few years left.
Yeah.
What kind of, not necessarily if they want to go into your direction, but if they want to be successful in terms of being able to support themselves in a creative capacity, what kind of skills should they really be focusing on and developing?
Great question. I think constantly be learning. Understand that leaving here is just the start. You're gonna know some basics. You're gonna know enough to get you by. You need to constantly learn and push and challenge yourself. You need to take on those projects that scare you, because it pushes you and your creativity. Understand. I would also. I taught here 2 semesters about 4 or 5 years ago. I taught. What class you taught, Fred? The web class. Web 1.
I don't know.
Do you know? You don't know that you teach that class, or
What class?
is it like Intro to Web 1? Is that a?
Oh, you taught Web 1? Yeah.
Yeah. So I taught that class, and I taught class that did Illustrator and InDesign. I would say, in regards to the understanding programs are nice. They're just understand that they're tools. They're not the solution. You're going to need to know or have some familiarity with some of that stuff, but that's stuff that all can be learned through constant education. There's plenty of tutorials and all of it. The internet has a bunch of stuff on it. I would say while you're here is really start understanding, start challenging your creativity, push yourself. You want portfolio pieces, but also don't be afraid to just explore and do something different. Right? Don't be so focused on the portfolio. We'll constantly change and improve that over time. And there's always something else. We're going to stop with that. But, this was a collaboration. Work with other people, not just other designers. Most of the time, this is actually, understand that this is one of the few times that you are going to be working with other designers on a daily basis. For the majority of my career, it's been just me. Right? Even if you're in a marketing agency, half the time you're dealing with account executives and the customer. And yeah, there might be a couple other designers, but sometimes they freelance and stuff. So take the feedback from your designer, your coworkers, I'll call it right now, right? Your fellow students. Leverage that. Bounce ideas off of each other. Keep that network going when you're out of here. You need that creative vent. You need to have that conversation on a creative basis. Because the problems you're going to deal with in the professional career, I'm telling you, every other creative is dealing with the same ones. And it took me a little while to realize that. Right? So, I would also even say too, while here, there's probably other departments in this organization. In Buff, I'm assuming there's other departments in Buff State, right? It's not just the design department. To Brent, to your question, what can the staff do? I would actually challenge you guys to maybe even start doing some cross-disciplinary projects, whether it's with is there a comp sci department here or a business department here? So you can start, again, going back to the Venn diagram, start having those conversations with those other people, because that's how the solutions get built. It's not just from the design side.
Good. Great. you have a question?
I do. I assume that you'd also you also mean like within the department itself, because we have painting, we have sculpture, we have
Oh, yeah.
making, we have all of these other creative venues.
I would say just don't sit on a computer the entire time. Please don't. So in college, I was on the computer all the time, but I would always take a drawing class or a painting class just to get my hands dirty. I now serve that need. I bought an old home on the west side, and I've been spending the last 5 years like renovating that. That's been my creative outlet where I get my hands dirty. Yes, you want to master your craft when it comes to graphic design, furniture design, whatever it is, but always find other outlets to push, right, and explore. Just gives you a fresh perspective. But yes, if you're on the computer all the time, essentially you're just occasionally with some woodworking or some paint or whatever it is.
When shaping a portfolio for a job, like for Sentient Science, did you like pick and choose what pieces you were going to show them specifically, or did you just show them everything that you've done?
First of all, personally, I hate portfolios. It's like a necessity. For Sentient Science, for Sentient Science, I had just, that was like 5 years ago. I had come into the group recommended from a friend, so I think that helped get me through the process. But I had one over-the-phone conversation with the developer and the head of marketing or business at that time, who would be my 2 colleagues for the next 3 years after that. I showed them just some like web pieces I'd done, like 1 or 2. I really don't have a formalized portfolio. I've been trying to build one for like 2 years. Every time I don't really have the time. I have like a little bit here and there. And then on my last interview, or post-last interview, we had a conversation. Their website was atrocious at that time. So I literally did myself. I just did a quick prototype of the homepage of what it may look like. So kind of showing my design style in their content, which I had done a couple times previously, and I feel like that is always valuable, because then it also shows just now on the other side where I'm hiring and looking for people. It shows that you're going that next step, right? It shows your ambition. It shows that you want to be part of the organization.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.